You can see right over there, you hear the tractors?
Yeah.
We're surrounded by development. And so what's happening is our land is going away. Now, the sock system can be deployed over the ground on man-made surfaces and put this beautiful soil in here and grow fully organic, super nutrient-rich food. 70% less water, 2.5 times faster growth, 50% less fertilizer, and over land that nobody's using. I mean, there's nothing about that that doesn't make sense. And that, to me, is the paradigm shift in urban agriculture. The question is, when's it going to go mainstream?
Where does your passion for this come from?
Well, as an old organic biochemist, I've always been curious as to how can we maximize a plant's genetic potential. So we've had a few anomalies in this farm lately. We've been using all of our vermicompost and we've been experimenting with our soils. This blue kale here used to be this size. It used to be one of these. They were all planted at the same time. This thing just found nirvana down in the soil. I mean, it's just an insanely healthy kale plant. Imagine if all of a sudden our soil blends could start producing crops that were of this scale. This stuff is just spectacular and getting the nutrition it needs. And it's not happening everywhere, but it's happening enough for us to realize that there is a secret here that we've got to unlock.
I'd been working with Eric Cutter at Alegria Farms. He had brought me on board as a soil consultant. I was bringing him rare earth resource materials that plants don't create by themselves. Some mycorrhizae, some biochar, something that he's like, biochar? Where'd you get the biochar? In Montana. And he said, how is Montana? And I said, I went to this place called the Green Powerhouse and I met this man, Michael Smith, who's amazing. He's brilliant. I knew it was just technology that was cutting edge. It's like a liquid biochar with some humic acid, and that's what plants need. They need a transporter and they need the carbon, a little air, and we have a healthy plant. So I gave Eric a sample, and within 24 hours he called me because a plant had changed color in 45 minutes after he applied this byproduct of this energy facility, the Green Powerhouse. He said, I have to go to Montana immediately, book some airfare.
When I was 4 years old, I did have a severe car accident in front of my house. As my brothers were getting onto the school bus, I was very excited about them going to school. Then I ran across the street in front of a car that should have stopped for the bus, but it hit me about 40 miles an hour and just knocked me out of my shoes. The driver of the vehicle was uncertain that I was going to live, but fortunately he was a doctor. So I have this sort of good news, bad news kind of a life. You know, what do you want? You want me dead or do you want me alive? Come on. You know. He knew exactly what to do afterwards, and I believe that saved my life. After that, I didn't know who my parents were. It took me a long time to relearn everything that I knew. Diane thinks I'm a walk-in from another world.
Imagine how smart he would be had he not been hit by the car.
Yeah.
Or did that make him smarter?
I don't necessarily see myself as that smart. That's the problem. I got a chance to work with Walt Disney Studios. I worked with NASA. We worked with the FBI. We remastered Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon. We actually captured and digitized some of the Beatles stuff. I like to say that I was one of the first pioneers in 3D printing, long before 3D printers were known as such. I was working with the Dire Straits on a music video called Money for Nothing. I worked with physics engines that are used in video games. Games like FIFA and Madden, Grand Theft Auto and Halo. We tried to introduce more natural behaviors into character animations, which involved a lot of artificial intelligence. And I was offered the job at LucasArts, but they required that I live and stay in San Francisco. I thought, well, gee, I value my freedom. There's no job here for somebody doing artificial intelligence research. I thought, well, I can apply technology to biology and we can have dynamic systems that are controlled, completely natural, because we're not doing anything like GMOing or modifying the species. Rather than treating a character in a game as the main component, we thought, well, maybe we could use algae as a character. Turned down George Lucas. I don't know if that was the best decision, but it was a decision.
All checked and carry-on luggage is subject to search.
You and I are going to have some talks. Well, I've done some testing behind your back. Well, I compared it to some of the best root enhancement mediums. And there's some compounds in that are quite different. We're an energy company too. Food is energy. So I have the same problem you do, as saying, can we scale? And who's going to stop us from scaling? Big picture concerns that down the road Big Ag's going to pound on me and say, yeah, that's just getting a little bit out of hand right there. Okay, how do we hide out in Montana and all these niche areas that'll defend our power plants, and we can distribute the power without getting, squashed? Because we're all about taking it back. This new compound that's coming off the green powerhouse is a very powerful root stimulator, which means that it's a very powerful natural fertilizer. So this ought to be fun. Here we are, look at this, look at that power plant. Wow, middle of Montana. Who would guess? The biodome, wow. All right, I already want one.
I believe it's a game changer. What the algae and the biochar together do is literally rejuvenate, revitalize, and remake soil. And I cannot emphasize enough how important that is. So, Michael Smith, this is Eric Cotter.
Eric Cotter, nice to meet you. Pleased to meet you as well. I'm a biochemist and oncologist by training. I grow food and I'm a chef. And so I started playing around with this stuff, and I called Ken. I said, Ken, where'd you get this stuff?
Really?
Oh my gosh.
Michael is an extraordinary visionary. He was the visionary behind the company, even though it had several founders.
We discovered that the waste usually occurs when you short-circuit natural processes. You take carbon where it does the most good and you put it where it does the most damage. The rate that we're pushing the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere just overwhelms the planet's ability to capture it. Because we're trying to emulate something that nature is doing, and nature is inherently complex.
You realize that there's 1 billion microbes in this piece of soil the size of your little finger.
Oh, yeah.
And we think we know it all. I mean, we can go to the moon, but we have no idea what's going on with those 1 billion microbes.
And what we're doing now, of course, are killing those microbes
Right.
in the soil.
And we don't even know what we're killing and what ratios we're offsetting.
It's one of the battles that we're fighting against standard fertilizing concepts.
Right.
If I were to start a fertilizer company and I wanted just to maximize my profits and didn't care about anything else, what a great strategy, right? You put it on one year, you get a good growth. The next year, the growth's not so good, so you have to add a little more. And then you add a little more, and pretty soon you've completely destroyed your soil. So we discovered, well, how can we integrate these components together to bring those cycles back into balance again? Well, the answer's been with us forever, right? All we had to do is open our eyes and look around.